Thanks for being here with us tonight. We're Beck Taxi, and we're here today to introduce a marketing strategy that we're hopeful that you'll approve at the end of this presentation. So thank you for having us.
So the first part that we looked at in the environmental analysis was actually political. So taxi services are regulated to create rules for prices and as well as vehicle safety, and as well as the quality service standards and limits to the amount of taxis in each area. And as well as municipalities conduct reviews periodically for taxi plates and issue them based on the population growth in the areas and cities that they're in. There are many limitations that come along with this, such as fewer service providers for consumers. So there's not as many taxis in the areas for what the population needs or what the consumer wants, as well as there's higher prices for taxis. So it's always that starting rate when you get in a taxi and you see the number when you get in, and as well as it's unkept equipment. So not every taxi is kept up to the standards that they need to be, which is unfortunate and can cause bad reviews, and as well as overall slow and poor service, which can reflect badly on Beck taxis as well.
So some other point you can expect to keep in mind is that just last year Toronto City Council passed this new bylaw known as Vehicle for Hire, which gives an advantage to this ride-sharing companies such as Uber and Lyft, because now they can regulate legally in Toronto area. And the new bylaw made it mandatory for this ride-sharing companies to have like driver's background check every year. And also the ride-sharing companies can only use vehicle which is 7 years younger. So it is typically 2010 models or newer than that.
So for the economic aspect, the taxi drivers must pay a yearly fee of $290 and they must carry $2 million in collision and passenger hazard insurance. The Toronto taxi industry revenue is $1.62 million in every day, and the average full-time taxi driver makes $31 grand a year. All taxi operators are required to record their GST and HST no matter what their annual revenue is. And so the City of Toronto has reduced their fare from $4.25 to $3.25 so that the taxis can compete with Uber. And by July 2024, all taxi plates are going to have to be converted to the Toronto taxi licenses so that people cannot have their personal license and rent it out to create more revenue. So this graph shows that the value of the taxi license over time. The green line is the average values of the annual sales, and the orange is the average values adjusted for their inflation in 2014. And these purple dots are the actual prices of the sales in the unadjusted dollars. So it grows from 2000 on, it grows all the way up, and it keeps increasing up until 2014.
Now we're going to look at some social aspects of the environmental analysis. First, taxis are available everywhere. When you're at an event, they're all lined up, and in some small towns, this is not available for ride-share programs. They're only available in large cities. People look for convenience when they're looking for transportation services, but they also look for safety. So they're not just only going to pick the fastest drivers, they're going to look for safety components as well. There's an increasing demand in the Toronto area for transportation services with the growing population. Toronto is estimated to surpass 3 million people in 2026. People are more likely to pay with credit and debit, and it is easier to pay on your phone than rather with cash or while you get to your location. So there are many reasons why people would take taxis in Toronto. First would be frustration with traffic. People don't want to risk driving. There's constant construction, lack of parking, and parking is also very expensive downtown Toronto. Poor condition of roads. There's also bad weather. People don't want to risk driving, once again, and traveling in groups. It's definitely cheaper to travel in groups and take taxis or Uber. On weekdays, reasons why people would take taxis are they're running late, or if there are delays or interruptions with the TTC service. And on weekends, if they're consuming alcohol and don't want to risk driving, or to avoid high costs of parking.
So something to definitely note, especially with the ever-growing technology age, is that radio dispatch has actually become obsolete, and taxi services are no longer using the traditional radio services to communicate between dispatchers and taxi drivers. The industry is actually switching over to the use of tablets and touchscreens, and this is going to overall enhance the experience between those dispatchers and the drivers. Dispatchers are able to relay the information easier through the use of GPS systems and tablet screens, and they're also able to monitor where the cars are in each location around each of the cities. Another thing to note is apps have become a primary method of communication between companies and consumers. And this is really important because Beck Taxi was actually the first company in Toronto to have their own app, and it had 100,000 downloads right after being launched, and this contributes for 17% of their business. So another thing to make note of is that taxis in general, the whole taxi industry is actually going to get a high-tech makeover. Verifone Systems, which is producers of POS systems, debit, credit machines, and specialized dispatch tablets, will be installing new technology in tens of thousands of taxis. Touchscreens will also be installed for riders, and this is going to allow access to third-party apps such as Spotify. Customers will be able to play their own music, access their own playlists, and enjoy their ride a little bit better. There will also be access to apps such as OpenTable. Riders will be able to make reservations to a restaurant, a hotel. They'll be able to check their flight times, see if there's any delays. Another thing that will be included will be USB chargers and Wi-Fi. Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Android Pay will also be more accessible to riders as opposed to the traditional debit, credit, cash methods.
Okay, so like any taxi industry, we are going to have a lot of competition, but it's really important to note that in the city of Toronto, taxis cannot compete on price. So the current metered rate is set by the city of Toronto. So as you can see, it does change from year to year. However, currently the metered rate starts at $3.25, and for every 1.43 kilometer is 25 cents, and then every 30 seconds or under of idling is another 25 cents. So looking at our competitive advantages other than price, we actually have the largest fleet of taxis in Toronto. So this includes standard cars, vans for large groups of people, and wheelchair accessible vehicles. So on the road at any given time, 24/7, 365 days a year, there is a minimum of 1,500 Beck taxis, up to 2,000 Beck taxis on the road. At Beck Taxi, we actually speak over 90 different languages, just adding to the multiculturalism of Toronto. We do a lot of different corporate events, so we will bring a concierge to your event and have them call a taxi, and they can escort you out and just make sure your event has a more professional feel. We also have corporate accounts and gift certificates, and this kind of runs in with the event, so sometimes corporations will actually buy a load of gift cards for their employees so they have a safe ride home at the end of, say, a Christmas party. And then we also have the Beck app, as Shannon just mentioned. And then we have Uber. So Uber is one of our biggest competitors in the city of Toronto. But it's really important to note that they're an unregulated taxi service, but a regulated ride-share service. So they can actually compete with us on price because they do not have to adhere to the metered rate. There's a bunch of different kinds of Ubers in Toronto. So we have anywhere from UberX, which is considered to be basically the same as a taxi, to Uber Wave, which is a wheelchair accessible vehicle, Uber Assist, which is someone who maybe bring your groceries in after your ride home, etc. So the difference between a taxi and an Uber is that a taxi actually has dispatchers as well as the app. However, every aspect for Uber is completed on the app. So you do everything from ordering, you can get a fare estimate to see how much it may cost you, payment and tipping, and you actually rate your driver, and your driver will rate you. So looking at the rates, it varies from city to city. However, in Toronto, it's estimated that a customer would pay about 50% less on an Uber ride than on a taxi ride. However, this isn't always the case because Uber implements something called surge rates. So surge rates are when there's more demand for Ubers than on the road. So, for example, if there was a Blue Jays game or a Toronto Maple Leafs game on, and the demand was higher for Ubers, Uber can double the price, triple the price, quadruple the price, depending on the demand. So the general rule for Toronto, at least, is when the Uber surge is at least doubled, it's cheaper to take a taxi. And then we have some competitors that aren't as prevalent as Uber and other taxi companies, but are still something to consider. So we have something called Lyft, which is a brand new entrant as of today. So Lyft is very similar to Uber. It's a ride-sharing app as well, so they do not have to compete with us on price. And before Lyft even came to Toronto, 50,000 people from Toronto had actually downloaded the app. So it's showing that this is going to be a big competitor just like Uber. Then we have the TTC, which is the buses, subways, and streetcars, and a general fare is $3.25. There's also something called Bike Share, which has over 200 stations in Toronto, and it only costs $7.50 a month for a membership to Bike Share. And then we have PATH, which is the underground pathways through downtown Toronto, and that's free to use, and it's just an inside way of getting through downtown Toronto. Say if there was inclement weather, that's another option for people to take.
So now that we've looked at our competitive analysis as well as our pest, we're now going to look at some opportunities within the taxi industry. First would be having a Beck black car service. The idea of this is that we know that people want to look professional. Uber offers different types of cars like Uber X where you can get a very fancy car, and we think this would be a big opportunity for our company as well. We don't surge rate campaign. This would also be a big opportunity because we would say that today a cab would be $20 and the next day a cab would be $20. No matter what the event is going on in Toronto, say like Alyssa said, the Blue Jays game or a Leafs game, every day the rates would be the same. Another big opportunity would have a driver rating system on our app. This would encourage our drivers and reward them to do a better job while they're driving. And also adding tablets to taxis for passenger entertainment, because nowadays there's lots of technology going on, and this would be a big opportunity for them.
So some of the threats that we identified was that Uber and other ride-sharing are competent on price. That means that they, like Anissa mentioned before, that when there's surge rate, it is a competitive advantage to us that we can adapt that competition, but also without when there's no surge rate, Uber is not regulated with the prices, so that it is one of the threat that we consider. And also with the new regulation which was passed, it opened gates for so many competitions, so that such ride sharing companies, it is an easy pathway to them for coming into taxi industry. And also, since there's a rise in technology every day, it can also distract the drivers from driving safely. And also new and more harsh regulation on the taxi industry could arise by the city council, because with such technology and industry growing so much, to keep everything in control, they might come with more harsh regulations. And also Uber gives new users free ride, but we do not offer any referral program, so it is also an competitive disadvantage to us.
So some of the strengths that we were actually finding is that Beck taxis already actually have tablets in the cars themselves for the actual taxi drivers. So it'll actually be really easy for us to transfer over the tablet idea for the customers to use if we were to choose that. And if we actually were to choose the black car service, some of the strengths is that we actually already have on-site uniformed supervisors for larger events such as Alicia and Caitlin said earlier about Leafs game or Maple Leafs game. And as well as Beck is reliable and a well-known brand because it's the largest and most known brand in Toronto for the taxi services.
So some of the weaknesses are that there's no estimated time of arrival, so that kind of puts on the app, so that kind of puts another downfall. And not many people know about the app, which is another downfall. Beck Taxi is worried about losing the human touch and the experience of a taxi because everything is going digitalized these days. And the taxi services are becoming outdated because of the age of ride sharing and it's cheaper cost that way. But the high capital cost to adding new technology to taxis is also a weakness.
So just looking at our marketing objective, what we're really wanting to do is to increase the advanced technology within Toronto Beck taxis to further our competitive advantage, especially against Uber because they already have such similar technology advances. We really want to get ourselves higher up in the market and make ourselves more technology advanced.
And then because like Shannon was saying earlier with technology, we really want to stay above the technology curve and pretty much stay on trend with everyone. So our benefit is that the consumers have a consistent experience with Beck taxis. And the features that we have is the tablets connect to Wi-Fi in every car. So they're actually able to check their emails, even just search up things that they may need to see. And we will introduce music as well.
So just giving an insight in the target market, if we look at this chart here, it says that most people who are using taxi are aging from 25 to 34%, which amounts to 28% of people are using taxi in that age group. But actually 47 and 41% are actually using Uber X and Uber taxis, which is a higher number compared to the taxis, and that is because they're more technology advanced. So we actually want to penetrate this group of people because we already have like 28% who are already using the taxi. We want actually to target this group of people, which is millennials, and just penetrate their competition in our company.
So as Lena was saying, we really want to take advantage of Uber's users. We want them to come to Beck Taxi. And the way we're going to do that is through the technology and actually through Spotify and using music. Because millennials see technology as a way to improve life, make better choices, and contribute to society. And millennials actually 24% of technology users, and 11% of them accounted for music/pop culture. And interestingly enough, 75.1% of millennials listen to more music than baby boomers. And users of Spotify, 72% of them are actually millennials. So what these charts are showing is that based on the different age groups within millennials, this shows the number of hours that each of them are listening to music on a regular basis. But it's also talking about the high percentages that music is impacting their life. So whether or not they're listening to music when they get home, whether they're listening to music with their friends. 30% typically buy music prior to a music event. Music events are a huge opportunity for taxis. People don't want to drive in the Toronto downtown traffic, so they're going to take a taxi to that event, but they're going to want to listen to the music on the way to that event. 74% of millennials who believe new technology makes life easier. 54% of millennials believe that new technology makes people closer to their friends and family. This is a huge benefit for us because at Beck, we're really concerned about losing that human relation with our consumers because of the digital age. But through music, you can make new connections and you can connect with your friends while you're in the taxi. You can connect with the driver. It makes a great experience. 56% of millennials who believe new technology allows people to use their time more efficiently. This is really important because in terms of downtown traffic, a lot of people really don't like being stuck in it. And being stuck in a car and not being able to do anything about it, it does suck. So being able to enjoy music and enjoy your time while you're with Beck Taxi is a huge benefit to our company and to our customers.
So how are we going to do this? So we plan to install 2,000 tablets in the back of every single Beck Taxi car to go along with the consistent experience. So every time you step into a Beck Taxi, you know what to expect. So the tablets will include Wi-Fi, so you can go on to things such as OpenTable to make a reservation or check your airline ticket or your hotel reservation. That will be all through pre-downloaded apps, so people don't have to actually search up on the website. They can literally just click a button and get on one of those apps. Like Shannon was saying, music is a huge part of millennials' life. So we're going to install Spotify on every tablet, and that will be connected to the car's speaker systems. So as soon as you play a song, it will be playing in this car, not just on the tablet. And also we will be installing GPS tracking and estimated time of arrival, so people know approximately how long they are going to be waiting in that car.
The financial aspect of this, to go on with this strategy further ahead, we need to install iPad minis in 2,000 taxis, which is going on in Toronto, and it will cost up to like 1.1 million. And there are some other costs we need to consider, which is such as wireless internet router for Wi-Fi, the Spotify for the music experience, and the internet plan to just go on with this, and it would amount to up to 270 to around 3 million, and this is just the cost. This is the cost to incur all the technology which we need to stay ahead in the technology curve.
So now that you have heard our plan, we are going to look at some next steps. Before we invest almost $3 million, we're going to do a test about our ideas. So we're going to install 200 tablets in the back of some of our taxis. We're going to do a 2-month-long test. We're going to have our regular riders just rate our cab experience after every cab ride, whether it's the ones with the tablet or without, and then we are going to see if it really matters if the tablet is in the car. If this is successful, we are going to install the tablets and the Wi-Fi into all 2,000 Beck taxis. We're also going to launch an advertising campaign to promote the awareness of new technology in Beck taxis. So now that you've heard our research and our reasoning as well as our plan, we would like to know if we have your approval. Thank you.